Stay tuned. Ahead, I'll talk with Jeremy Salamon about his book, Second Generation, Hungarian and Jewish Classics Reimagined for the Modern Table. Hi, I'm Dan Skinner, and this is Some Books Considered. Jeremy Salamon is the James Beard-nominated chef and owner of Agi's Counter in Brooklyn, a 2022 pick for Bon Appetit's Best New Restaurants list, and a 2023 Michelin Bib Gourmand Award recipient. He's been recognized by the New York Times, Food and Wine, Forbes, The New Yorker, and more. And he joins us to talk about Second Generation, Hungarian and Jewish Classics Reimagined for the Modern Table. Jeremy, welcome to Some Books Considered.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, in the beginning of your book, you talk about your two grandmothers, who you refer to as your moon and your star. Tell us about them and how they influenced your career and also helped inspire this cookbook.
Yeah, I like to say that my childhood was a tale of two grandmothers. I lived quite literally in the middle of the both of them, so I wasn't too far from either of their homes. And my one grandmother would have a dinner on Friday night, and the other dinner would be on a Sunday night, and the family would gather. And I was fed very well. I was a rather large child growing up, and they both Agi and Arlene were very supportive of my cooking, endeavors. And so I was very fortunate that they nourished that and fed that. And my grandmother Arlene got me my first cooking job, working at a country club in Florida. So you could say they are very, very supportive.
And as you mentioned in the book, they're part of the inspiration for this cookbook because you're bringing in those cuisines from both sides of the family.
Yeah, so there's Grandma Agi, who is Hungarian, Eastern European, and then I have my grandmother Arlene, who was born and raised in the Bronx, but she comes from a Sephardic family, so Jewish Greek, if you would. And I think both of those kind of fused together, created a very interesting childhood.
Well, as the subtitle of your cookbook states, you're taking some traditional recipes and bringing them up to date for today's modern table. So can you give us a few examples of some traditional recipes that you've brought up to date?
So there's the kurizet, which is a Hungarian cheese dip. It's usually made with a fresh cheese, like a ricotta, farmer's cheese. It's got onion in it and caraway seeds and paprika. But I wanted to kind of bring it forward into the 21st century and kind of Americanize it. So I more or less kind of fused it with pimento cheese, which is a spread that you can commonly find in the South. And it's made with cream cheese and cheddar and piquillo peppers. So I kind of brought those two things together and created my version of kurizet, this second generation approach to it.
So tell us a bit more about how the book is organized.
Yeah, so the book is organized. It starts off with the first chapter, which is called Noshing, which I believe is a very important course and a meal. And so it starts with the noshes, which are like appetizers. We've got soups, which play a really integral role in Hungarian cuisine. So there's also types of soups. There's chilled soups, and there's stone fruit soups, and then there's more meaty braises. We have our mains. We've got companions or side dishes. And then there are two dessert chapters. There's a cake and torte chapter, which is cakes and tortes are also a very important part of Eastern European cuisine. So I felt like it needed its own chapter. And then there's a dessert chapter after that as well. So there's also a larder section or pantry, followed by a very poetic, romantic chapter called Remedies, which is very story driven.
Well, I was curious about that. Tell us about what is in that remedies section and why it's so important to you.
Yeah, so the remedy section was actually an idea by my co-author, Casey, and we were going back and forth a lot with stories of our childhood. And a common theme was a recipe or some sort of dish that was played an important role in moments of need or turbulent times in our lives. And we thought, wouldn't it be really cool to have this kind of more poetic, romantic section of the book, which you don't see in a lot of cookbooks, that provided recipes that were incredibly personal to me. So there's a recipe for kobo mogul, which was basically like whipped eggs and sugar, which my grandmother would feed me or my father when we were sick. There's also matzo brie, which are scrambled eggs with matzah and cinnamon sugar, which my mom would make at the beginning of any sort of celebration. There's also my grandmother's German chocolate cake, which was, I think, of just oozes comfort. And that was something that I always looked to when things got really tough and hard. And I associate those times with the smell of German chocolate cake wafting through the house. So it's a really beautiful section, and I hope that translates to people.
I'm talking with Jeremy Salamon about second generation Hungarian and Jewish classics reimagined for the modern table. And our conversation continues in a moment. If you're enjoying this discussion, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. And thank you. One of the things I appreciated about this cookbook was before every recipe, there was a personal note. And that note might put it in cultural context or historical context, but also you would share stories about why this particular recipe was important to you. So could you give us an example of one of those recipes that hold a special place in your heart?
Yeah, well, the first recipe that comes to mind would be the palacsinta, which is a Hungarian crepe. It's like a very spongy crepe. It's made with seltzer, an egg and flour, milk. And my grandmother would make that for every dinner. But could be a savory crepe that would be stuffed with like braised or chicken or a chicken paprikash, but also could be a dessert. And it was the way she made it for her grandkids was a bit of a DIY situation. So she would put the stack of crepes accompanied by all these accoutrements of chocolate sauce and caramel and nuts and cherries and sugar. And she just let everybody kind of go to town and stuff their own crepe. And they don't do that in Hungary. They kind of have their set palacsintas. So it really went against the culture and the tradition in many ways, the way she would serve it. And that, I don't know, that just really was very memorable to me, that she presented this dish that is very much associated with Hungary in her own new way, in her own Americanized, way. So it's a dish that we actually serve at my restaurant, Agi's Counter. And we do play with it and the different flavor profiles. So, that's a dish that I hold near and dear.
Who do you envision as the audience for this cookbook?
Yeah, that's a good question. I imagine that second generation is geared towards a wide range of people. I think there's the home cook aspect of it. Folks that are avid cookbook collectors. I think there is a wide range from, being, an amateur in the kitchen, to being more of a hardcore, cookbook collector, food nerd, if you will. I think the difficulty of recipes really does range. And I also see this as a book for people like me, millennials that are second generation descent, not necessarily of Eastern European descent or Jewish descent, but discovering a cuisine that maybe not a lot of people know about, and approaching it with an open mind, discovering something new, but also sensing some familiarity within the book. With every dish, my hope is that there's something approachable or nostalgic about it in some way, shape, or form, but also something new. And I think that can be applicable to anybody. So I think there's a wide range of people that this could appeal to.
One of the other things I want to compliment you and your team on is that this is a gorgeous book. It's filled with these wonderful, mouth-watering photographs. What can you tell us about those photos?
Yeah, well, thank you. I had my dream photographer and team put this book together. Ed Anderson was my photographer, and he's photographed some of my favorite cookbooks. So it really was a pinch me moment that he agreed to shoot this. And Maeve Sheridan and Spencer Richards and Jessica Quinn were all part of the prop styling and food styling. And they really just understood the vision that I wanted a book that oozed comfort and memory, and they just hit it on the nose. So I was super proud to work with them. So what new appreciation of Hungarian and Jewish food do you hope people will take from the book? Yeah, I hope that people walk away from this having learned that Hungarian cuisine and Eastern European cuisine can be more than just a heavy meat soup or a piece of meat with a bunch of sauce on it. There can be these lighter moments that are colorful with fruits and vegetables and lighter broths, and you can kind of make it whatever you want it to be, especially in the second generation approach. You can utilize the farmer's market. You can, lean on the seasons. And I hope this book, the recipes in this book evolve for the home cook the way that they evolved for me. And I want people to make the recipe the first time around to the T, but after that, I hope it becomes something of their own vision, and they can serve to their partners and their families. So this is your first cookbook. Congratulations for that. Do you see more cookbooks in the future? I definitely do. I really enjoyed the process, and I hope I get to do it again. It is a very long and arduous process, so one book at a time. But yeah, I definitely see some more books in the future. To learn more, the book is Second Generation, Hungarian and Jewish Classics Reimagined for the Modern Table by Jeremy Salamon. Jeremy, thank you for talking with me today. Oh gosh, thank you so much for having me. If you'd like to purchase Second Generation, I've placed a link for you in the description below. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, like, and click on the bell so you know when I post new interviews. Meanwhile, here are 2 more interviews you might find interesting. I'm Dan Skinner. Thank you for watching this edition of Some Books Considered.